Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English in Fluency. I'm Alex, your host for today. This space we share is about more than just mastering the English language. It's about using language to better understand ourselves and the world we navigate every single day. We know that language and thought are woven together. So when we expand our vocabulary, we aren't just learning new words. We are discovering new ways to think, new perspectives to see from, and even new strategies to manage the quiet battles we all face. Today, we're going to explore a topic that touches every single one of us, regardless of where we're from, what language we first spoke, or the culture that shaped us. We are going to talk about a hidden superpower, a skill that, once mastered, can change the entire quality of your life, your relationships, and your inner peace. We're going to talk about the power of not reacting. Now, I want you to think about something for a moment. Have you ever said something in the heat of an argument and, just a few seconds later, wished you could take it back? Have you ever sent an angry email or a frustrated text message, only to be filled with deep regret the moment you hit send? Have you ever felt that hot surge of emotion, that feeling of being completely hijacked by anger or defensiveness, where you lose control and let your impulses take the wheel? I think if we are all being honest with ourselves, the answer is a resounding yes. We have all been there. It's a deeply human experience. Imagine this scenario. A young professional named Liam is sitting in a weekly team meeting. He has spent the last 2 weeks working tirelessly on a project report, putting in extra hours, making sure every detail was perfect. He's proud of his work. As his manager begins to discuss the report in front of the entire team, a cold feeling of dread washes over Liam. The manager points out a minor error, a single misplaced number in a 50-page document, and then proceeds to criticize the entire report as careless and rushed. The criticism feels incredibly unfair, and in front of all his colleagues, it feels deeply humiliating. In that moment, Liam feels a fire ignite in his chest. His heart starts pounding. His face feels hot. And 100 defensive thoughts flood his mind. He wants to interrupt. He wants to shout, "That's not true! You're ignoring all the good work. I worked so hard on this." He wants to list all the reasons why his manager is wrong. He wants to defend his honor, his effort, his reputation. His entire body is screaming at him to react, to fight back, to correct this injustice right here and now. He opens his mouth to speak. The words are right there on the tip of his tongue, ready to explode out of him. But what if he didn't? What if, in that tiny, razor-thin space between the unfair criticism and his impulsive desire to defend himself, Liam chose to do something different? What if he chose to do nothing? What if he just took a slow, silent breath? What if he just listened, letting the uncomfortable feeling wash over him without letting it control him? This is the very heart of our conversation today. That small, almost invisible moment of choice. The choice to react or the choice to respond. We often believe that power lies in having the last word, in proving our point, in winning the argument. But today, we are going to explore a different, more profound kind of power. The power that comes from emotional discipline. The strength that is found not in a loud reaction, but in a quiet, deliberate pause. We will learn that not reacting doesn't mean you are weak. It doesn't mean you are passive. And it certainly doesn't mean you are letting people walk all over you. In fact, it means the exact opposite. It means you are so in control of yourself that you refuse to let external events or other people's words dictate your emotional state. It means you are the one in charge, not your fleeting emotions. Throughout our time together, we will journey deep into why we react the way we do, looking at what's happening inside our own brains. We will learn to tell the crucial difference between an impulsive reaction and a thoughtful response. We'll uncover the mental traps and the stories we tell ourselves that fuel our emotional fires. And most importantly, we will build a practical toolkit filled with simple, powerful strategies that you can start using today to cultivate this incredible skill. This isn't just a theoretical discussion. It's a practical guide to reclaiming your inner peace and personal power. So, if you have ever wished you could be calmer in difficult situations, if you want to build stronger, healthier relationships, and if you are ready to stop letting your emotions control you, then you are in the right place. Find a comfortable spot. Take a slow, deep breath, and let's begin this journey together into the profound power of the pause. Before we can learn how to control our reactions, it's incredibly helpful to understand what is actually happening inside our own heads when we feel that sudden, overwhelming urge to react. It's not a character flaw, and it's not a sign of weakness. It's biology. It's a system that was designed millions of years ago to keep us safe. But in our modern world, this same system can often cause more harm than good. So let's take a simplified look at the science behind our emotional explosions. Deep inside our brain, there is a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. You can think of the amygdala as your brain's emotional smoke detector or its security guard. Its primary job is to constantly scan your environment for any signs of danger or threat. When it perceives a threat, whether it's a real physical danger like a growling dog, or a perceived social danger like your boss criticizing you in a meeting, it sounds an alarm. And it sounds this alarm incredibly fast, much faster than the logical, thinking part of your brain can even process what's happening. When this alarm goes off, it triggers a powerful chain reaction in your body, known as the fight or flight response. Your brain releases a flood of stress hormones, like adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate skyrockets to pump blood to your muscles. Your breathing becomes shallow and quick to take in more oxygen. Your senses sharpen. Your body is preparing itself for immediate, physical action. It's getting ready to either fight the threat or run away from it as fast as possible. This is an amazing survival mechanism. If you were a prehistoric human and you came face to face with a saber-toothed tiger, you wouldn't want to spend time logically analyzing the situation. You would need that instant, powerful, automatic reaction to save your life. This process is often called an amygdala hijack. It's a perfect name for it, because the emotional part of your brain, the amygdala, literally hijacks the rational, thinking part of your brain, which is called the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain right behind your forehead. It's the sophisticated, modern part of the brain responsible for things like logical reasoning, planning, decision-making, and, most importantly for our conversation, emotional regulation. It's the CEO of your brain. But during an amygdala hijack, The CEO is temporarily kicked out of the office. The smoke detector is ringing so loudly that the CEO can't think clearly. The alarm system bypasses the logical brain entirely, connecting your senses directly to your action centers. You see the threat, and you act without thinking. Now, here's the problem. In our modern world, we rarely face saber-toothed tigers. But our amygdala hasn't really evolved to know the difference between a life-threatening danger and a non-life-threatening one. To your amygdala, an unfair criticism from your partner can feel just as threatening as a physical attack. A rude comment on social media can trigger the same alarm as a predator in the wild. Your manager's angry tone of voice can activate the same fight-or-flight response that your ancestors needed to survive. So, when Liam was criticized in that meeting, his amygdala didn't see a manager with poor communication skills. It saw a threat. It perceived an attack on his social standing, his reputation, his place in the tribe. And it sounded the alarm. The flood of adrenaline made him want to fight back verbally. The cortisol sharpened his focus on the perceived injustice, his logical brain, the part that might have said, "Okay, this is unpleasant." But reacting angrily in front of the whole team is probably not a good career move. Was temporarily offline. He was in the grip of an amygdala hijack. Have you ever felt this happen to you? Can you recall a time when you felt completely overwhelmed by an emotion, and you acted in a way that, looking back, seemed irrational or out of character? That was likely an amygdala hijack. It's that feeling of, "I just snapped," or "I don't know what came over me." What came over you was a powerful, ancient survival circuit that was designed for a very different world. The good news, the truly wonderful news, is that we are not slaves to this ancient wiring. The prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain, can learn to calm the amygdala down. The CEO can learn to walk back into the office, assess the situation calmly, and turn off the fire alarm when it's just a false alarm. The very act of pausing, of taking a single deep breath, can be enough to start bringing the prefrontal cortex back online. That breath sends a signal to your nervous system that you are not in immediate physical danger. It creates a tiny gap, a moment of space. And in that space, logic can begin to return. In that space, you can move from a state of being hijacked to a state of being in control. So, when we talk about the power of not reacting, we are not talking about suppressing our emotions or pretending we don't feel them. The feelings are real. The biological response is real. Instead, we are talking about learning to notice the alarm bells ringing without letting them force us into an immediate, unthinking action. We are learning to create just enough of a pause to allow our rational mind to catch up with our emotional mind. It's the process of training our brain's CEO to stay in charge, even when the security guard is panicking. Understanding this biological process is the first step toward self-compassion. You don't react impulsively because you are a bad or angry person. You react this way because you have a human brain that is wired for survival. And with that understanding comes power. The power to consciously retrain our brain for the world we actually live in today. Now that we have a better understanding of the biological storm that happens inside us during an emotional trigger, we can explore one of the most important distinctions in all of personal development: the difference between reacting and responding. On the surface, these two words might seem similar, but in practice, they represent two completely different worlds. One world is characterized by impulsiveness, a loss of control, and often regret. The other is a world of intention, self-awareness, and personal power. Mastering the shift from one to the other is the very essence of emotional intelligence. A reaction is immediate. It's a gut-level, knee-jerk reflex that happens without conscious thought. It's driven by that amygdala hijack we just talked about. It's fast, it's automatic, and it's usually defensive. When you react, you are being controlled by the situation. The external event happens, and it's like a button is pushed inside you, producing an automatic, predictable outcome. Think of a doctor tapping your knee with a little rubber hammer. Your leg kicks out automatically. You don't think about it. You don't decide to do it. It just happens. That is a reaction. Emotionally, it's the same thing. Someone says something critical, and you immediately lash out with a defensive comment. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and you instantly honk your horn and feel a surge of anger. Your child spills milk on the floor, and you immediately sigh loudly and say something sharp. In these moments, there is no space between the trigger and your behavior. The trigger is your behavior. You have effectively handed over your emotional remote control to someone or something else. A response, on the other hand, is very different. A response is intentional. It's a choice. It comes after a moment of awareness. A pause. In that pause, you are able to observe your initial emotional urge, that first wave of feeling, without being swept away by it. You have time to engage your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain. You can consider the consequences of your actions. You can think about your long-term goals. You can decide what kind of person you want to be in that moment. A response is thoughtful, deliberate, and aligned with your values. When you respond, you are in control of yourself, regardless of the situation. Let's revisit our friend Liam in the meeting. His initial urge was to react. The trigger was the unfair criticism. The automatic reaction would have been to argue, to defend himself, to escalate the conflict. This would have been a purely emotional, defensive reflex, driven by his hijacked amygdala. But what would a response look like? A response begins with the pause. In that moment of silence, Liam takes a breath. He notices the heat in his face, the pounding in his chest. He acknowledges the feeling. Wow, I feel really angry and humiliated right now. By simply noticing and naming the feeling, he creates a small separation from it. Then, his thinking brain starts to come back online. He can ask himself some questions. What is my goal here? Is my goal to win this argument in front of my team? Or is my goal to maintain my professionalism and address this issue constructively? What will happen if I yell at my boss right now? It might feel good for a moment, but will it help my career in the long run? What is the most effective way to handle this? After that brief internal consultation, he can choose his response. He might choose to say nothing at all in the meeting, simply nodding to acknowledge he has heard the feedback. Then, later in the day, he could schedule a private, one-on-one meeting with his manager. In that calm setting, he could say something like, "I wanted to follow up on your feedback from the meeting this morning. I appreciate you pointing out that error, and I'll be sure to correct it. I was a bit surprised by the feedback that the report was careless, as I spent a significant amount of time on it. Could you help me understand which other parts felt rushed so I can improve for next time? Do you see the difference? The first option, the reaction, is a fire that likely would have burned bridges and damaged his professional reputation. The second option, the response, is a strategic, calm, and respectful action that preserves his dignity, demonstrates maturity, and opens the door for a productive conversation. The outcome of the situation is completely transformed, not by changing the external event, but by changing the internal choice. Reacting is about the short-term relief of releasing an emotion. Responding is about the long-term goal of achieving a desired outcome. Let's consider another example, one from our personal lives. Imagine a woman named Sarah comes home after a long, stressful day at work. She finds the kitchen in a mess, dishes piled up in the sink. Her partner, Ben, is relaxing on the sofa watching TV. The trigger is the messy kitchen. The automatic reaction, fueled by her stress and fatigue, might be to say, "Really? You've been home all afternoon and you couldn't even bother to do the dishes. I have to do everything around here." This is a reaction. It's based on the immediate feeling of frustration and a story she's telling herself about being unappreciated. This reaction will almost certainly lead to an argument. A response would start with a pause. Sarah walks in, sees the mess, and feels a flash of annoyance. She stops. She takes a breath. She notices her feeling. "I'm feeling really irritable and overwhelmed right now." She might even recognize that her stress from work is magnifying her feelings about the kitchen. Then, she can think, what's the best way to handle this? Yelling at Ben won't get the dishes done and will just ruin our evening. Maybe he had a stressful day too. She can then choose her response. She might walk over to the sofa, sit down next to him for a moment, and say, "Hey, what a long day. I'm feeling exhausted. I see the kitchen is a bit of a disaster. Any chance you could help me tackle it after this show is over?" This response acknowledges her feelings without blame. It connects with her partner, and it turns a potential conflict into a moment of teamwork. Reacting is easy. It requires no effort. It's our default setting. Responding is a skill. It requires practice, patience, and a commitment to self-awareness. It's like building a muscle. The first few times you try to lift the weight, it feels difficult and unnatural. But with consistent practice, it becomes easier, stronger, and eventually, your new default. So, I invite you to become an observer in your own life this week. Pay attention to the moments when you feel triggered. Don't judge yourself. Just notice. Notice the difference between your automatic, knee-jerk reactions and the moments where you manage to create that precious space and choose a thoughtful response. What situations or people tend to push your buttons the most? What does a reaction feel like in your body? The more you can observe this pattern without judgment, the more power you will have to consciously change it. Remember, the space between what happens to you and how you respond to it is where your growth and your freedom truly lie. We've established that our reactions are often automatic, driven by an ancient survival instinct. But what is it that actually lights the fuse? What are the specific thoughts or beliefs that cause our amygdala to hit the panic button in everyday situations? The truth is, It's rarely the event itself that causes our emotional reaction. It's the story we tell ourselves about the event. It's our interpretation of what happened. Our minds are powerful storytelling machines, and sometimes they tell stories that are not entirely true, or, at least, not entirely helpful. Psychologists sometimes call these unhelpful thinking patterns cognitive distortions, but I like to think of them as mental traps. Let's explore some of the most common mental traps that lead us into a state of emotional reaction. One of the most powerful traps is called mind reading. This is our tendency to assume that we know what other people are thinking, usually in a negative way, without any real evidence. We project our own fears and insecurities onto them, and then react to the story we just invented. For example, you send a text message to a friend, and they don't reply for several hours. The mind-reading trap kicks in. You start telling yourself a story. She's mad at me. I must have said something wrong. She's ignoring me on purpose. You start to feel hurt and angry. You might even send a passive-aggressive follow-up message. But what's the reality? The reality could be anything. Her phone battery might have died. She might be in a meeting. She might be dealing with a family emergency. By assuming the worst without any proof, you have created your own emotional pain and are reacting to a fiction you wrote yourself. Another common mental trap is personalization. This is the habit of taking everything personally, of believing that everything other people say or do is some kind of direct, personal reaction to you. For example, your boss is in a bad mood all day, speaking in a sharp tone and looking stressed. If you fall into the personalization trap, you might think, "What did I do wrong? He's definitely upset with my work." You spend the rest of the day feeling anxious and defensive, analyzing every interaction you've had. But the reality is that your boss's mood probably has nothing to do with you. He might have had an argument with his spouse that morning. He might be worried about company finances, or he might just have a headache. Personalization puts you at the center of everyone else's universe, which is not only inaccurate, but also an exhausting way to live. It makes you incredibly vulnerable to emotional reactions based on things that are not about you at all. Then there is the trap of catastrophizing, also known as magnifying. This is when we take a small, negative event and blow it up into a huge, life-altering disaster in our minds. Let's go back to Liam in our earlier story. His manager pointed out one error in a large report. A catastrophizing thought process would sound like this: "He found a mistake. Now he thinks all my work is terrible. He's going to think I'm incompetent. I'm definitely going to get fired. I won't be able to find another job. My career is over." This chain of thinking takes a single, manageable problem and turns it into an imagined catastrophe. When you're living in that imagined future of disaster, of course your fight-or-flight system is going to activate. You are reacting not to the small mistake, but to the terrifying story of failure and ruin that you are telling yourself. Let's consider a character named Chloe. Chloe is just starting to learn how to bake. She tries a new recipe for a chocolate cake for a family dinner. When she takes it out of the oven, it's a little bit burnt on the edges. The catastrophizing trap would lead her to think, "This cake is ruined. I'm a terrible baker. I can't do anything right. Everyone is going to hate it and think I'm a failure." This reaction drains all the joy out of her effort and might even make her want to give up baking altogether. A more balanced thought would be, okay, it's a bit burnt on the edges. It's my first time trying this recipe. I'll know to check it a few minutes earlier next time. It will still probably taste good. The event is the same, a slightly burnt cake. The story, and therefore the emotional reaction, is completely different. Another very common trap is all-or-nothing thinking, also called black and white thinking. This is when we see things in absolute extremes. Something is either perfect or a total failure. You are either a complete success or a complete loser. There is no middle ground, no room for nuance or shades of gray. For example, you decide to start a new diet. You stick to it perfectly for 4 days, but on the 5th day, you eat a piece of cake at a coworker's birthday celebration. The all-or-nothing trap says, "Well, I've ruined it now. My diet is a complete failure. I might as well just eat whatever I want for the rest of the day." This one small deviation is seen as a total catastrophe, which then leads to a reaction of giving up entirely. A more flexible mindset would say, "I enjoyed that piece of cake. It's okay to have a treat sometimes. I'll just get back on track with my next meal." This mindset allows for imperfection and makes it much easier to stay motivated. These mental traps, mind reading, personalization, catastrophizing, and all-or-nothing thinking, are the fuel for our emotional reactions. They are the distorted lenses through which we view the world, turning neutral or minor events into major threats. The key to escaping these traps is, once again, awareness. You cannot change a thought pattern that you don't know you have. So, I invite you to become a detective of your own thoughts. When you feel a strong negative emotion bubbling up, pause and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Try to identify the trap. Are you assuming you know what someone else is thinking? Are you making this all about you? Are you blowing this out of proportion? Are you seeing this in black and white? Simply asking these questions can break the spell of the story. It brings your logical brain back into the conversation. It allows you to challenge your own initial interpretation and look for other, more balanced and realistic explanations. Remember, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts, and by observing them, you gain the power to question them, and ultimately, to choose a different story. A story that leads not to a reaction, but to a calm and considered response. We have now journeyed through the why our brains are wired to react, and the what, the mental traps that fuel those reactions. Now, we arrive at the most important part of our conversation, the how. How do we actually build the skill of not reacting in the heat of the moment? How do we create that vital pause when our entire body is screaming at us to fight or flee? The answer lies not in one single magical solution, but in a collection of practical, accessible tools. Think of it as building an emotional toolkit. The more tools you have, and the more you practice using them, the better equipped you will be to handle any situation with grace and control. The first, simplest, and most powerful tool in your entire kit is your own breath. This may sound almost insultingly simple, but its effect on our physiology is profound and scientifically proven. As we discussed, when the amygdala hijack happens, our breathing becomes rapid and shallow. This signals danger to our nervous system. By consciously and intentionally changing our breathing pattern, we can send a message back to our brain that says, everything is okay. The threat is not life or death. You can stand down. This simple act helps to deactivate the fight or flight response and bring our thinking brain back online. One of the most effective techniques is called box breathing. It's used by Navy SEALs, athletes, and surgeons to stay calm under immense pressure. It's easy to remember because it has 4 equal sides, like a box. Let's try it together for a moment. You can do this with your eyes open or closed. First, gently exhale all the air from your lungs. Now, slowly inhale through your nose for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, hold your breath for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then, slowly exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally, hold the exhale for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's one cycle. Let's do one more. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Even just those 2 cycles can begin to lower your heart rate and calm your mind. The beauty of this tool is that it's completely invisible. You can do it in the middle of a tense meeting, during a difficult conversation, or when you're stuck in traffic, and no one will even know. A second tool is the practice of naming the emotion. There's a wonderful phrase in neuroscience, you have to name it to tame it. Research has shown that the simple act of putting a label on what you're feeling can significantly reduce the intensity of that emotion. When you are in the grip of a strong feeling, like anger or anxiety, the emotion feels all-consuming. It feels like you. But when you pause and mentally say to yourself, okay, this is anger I'm feeling, or I am noticing a feeling of deep frustration, you create a subtle but crucial separation. You shift from being the emotion to being the observer of the emotion. This act of labeling engages your prefrontal cortex, further helping to calm the amygdala. So, the next time you feel that emotional wave rising, try to silently name it. Don't judge it. Don't try to push it away. Just label it. This is disappointment. This is jealousy. This is fear. This small act of mindful awareness is a powerful step toward regaining control. A third tool, which is incredibly practical, is to create physical space. Sometimes, the most powerful response is to simply walk away. This is not a sign of weakness or avoidance. It is a strategic retreat. When a conversation is becoming too heated, or you feel yourself about to say something you'll regret, you can use a simple phrase to create a pause. You could say, you know, this is a really important conversation, and I want to give it the attention it deserves. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed right now. Can we please take a 15-minute break and come back to this when we're both a little calmer? This is an act of immense emotional maturity. It protects the relationship and prevents you from causing damage that is difficult to repair. Removing yourself from the triggering environment gives your nervous system time to settle down completely, allowing you to re-engage later from a place of logic and calm, not from a place of emotional reactivity. A fourth tool involves shifting your perspective by changing your time frame. When we are caught in a reactive moment, the problem feels huge and all-important. A great way to break this spell is to ask yourself a simple question. Will this matter in 5 years? Or 5 months? Or even 5 weeks? The answer is often a resounding no. That rude comment from a stranger? That frustrating traffic jam? That small disagreement over what to have for dinner? In the grand scheme of your life, these moments are incredibly insignificant. Asking this question helps you zoom out from the intense, microscopic focus of the present moment and see the bigger picture. It instantly diminishes the power of the trigger and helps you realize that a massive emotional reaction is simply not worth your energy. Let's imagine a character named Maya, who is planning a vacation with her friends. The group is having a hard time agreeing on a destination. One friend is being particularly difficult and critical of all of Maya's suggestions. Maya starts to feel incredibly frustrated and is about to type an angry message into the group chat. But she pauses. She uses the toolkit. She takes a few box breaths. She names her emotion, "I'm feeling really annoyed and unappreciated right now." And then she asks herself the perspective-shifting question, in 5 years, will I even remember this specific argument about where we went on vacation? Or will I just remember the fun time I had with my friends? This question instantly changes her state. She realizes that her relationship with her friends is far more important than winning this particular argument. She can then respond to the group chat from a place of calm and flexibility, perhaps suggesting they vote on the top 3 options. These tools, conscious breathing, naming the emotion, creating physical space, and shifting your time perspective, are not complicated. They don't require any special equipment or years of training, but they do require one thing: practice. You can't wait until you're in the middle of an emotional firestorm to try to remember how to use a fire extinguisher. You have to practice when things are calm. Practice box breathing for 1 minute every morning. Practice noticing and naming your smaller, everyday emotions. The more you practice these skills in low-stakes situations, the more readily available they will be to you when the stakes are high. Think of it as building emotional muscle memory. With time and consistency, the pause will become more and more automatic, and the thoughtful response will become your new, powerful default. Theory is one thing, but seeing how these principles play out in the messy reality of our daily lives is where the real learning happens. Let's immerse ourselves in a few detailed scenarios to see how ordinary people can apply the power of not reacting to transform difficult situations. We will explore the internal monologue, the struggle, and the ultimate choice to respond rather than react. Our first story takes us back to the workplace, with our friend Liam. After the humiliating meeting where his boss unfairly criticized his work, Liam returns to his desk. The initial amygdala hijack has subsided slightly, but he is still simmering with a potent mix of anger, resentment, and injustice. His mind is racing. I can't believe he did that in front of everyone. After all the extra hours I put in, he made me look like an idiot. I should go to HR. No, I should write a long email to him and his boss, detailing every single point of his unfairness. I'll show him. These are his reactive thoughts, fueled by the stories of personalization. He was trying to humiliate me, and catastrophizing. My reputation is ruined. He feels a powerful urge to act immediately, to do something to release this pressure building inside him. But Liam has been working on his emotional intelligence. He recognizes this feeling. He knows this is the danger zone. Instead of opening his email, he stands up and walks to the office kitchen to get a glass of water. This is his first conscious action. creating physical space. As he slowly drinks the water, he focuses on the cool sensation in his throat. He starts to practice his box breathing, a slow inhale, a hold, a slow exhale, a hold. He does this 4 times. The roaring fire in his chest begins to quiet down to a steady burn. Now that his prefrontal cortex has a bit more room to operate, he starts to use the tool of naming. Okay, I am feeling incredibly angry, and I feel deeply embarrassed. My pride is hurt. He doesn't judge the feelings. He just acknowledges them, like noticing clouds in the sky. This simple act makes the feelings feel less like him and more like something he is experiencing. Next, he challenges his initial stories. He asks himself, is it definitely true that his intention was to humiliate me? He considers other possibilities. Maybe he's under a lot of pressure from his own boss and is stressed out. Maybe he genuinely missed the good parts of the report and only focused on the one thing he saw. Maybe his communication skills are just really poor. He doesn't have to believe these other stories are true, but simply considering them breaks the certainty of his negative interpretation. He also asks the perspective-shifting question, in a year, how much will the feeling of this one meeting matter? He realizes it will barely be a memory, but how he handles it now could have a lasting impact on his career. He returns to his desk feeling much calmer and more in control. His goal is no longer to prove his boss wrong or to get revenge. His new goal is to address the issue professionally and protect his own reputation for being mature and resilient. He decides against sending an email, knowing that tone can be easily misinterpreted. Instead, he waits a few hours for the emotional charge of the day to dissipate for everyone. The next morning, he approaches his manager and asks for a brief private chat. In the meeting, he responds, not reacts. He says, I've corrected the error in the report from yesterday. I also wanted to ask for some clarification. It's important for me to produce high-quality work. So, I was concerned by the feedback that the report seemed careless. Could you walk me through your specific concerns so I can be sure to address them in the future? This response is assertive, but not aggressive. It's professional. It seeks a solution, and it puts the manager in a position to explain his reasoning rather than just defend an emotional outburst. By choosing the pause, Liam didn't just avoid a conflict. He turned a potentially career-damaging event into an opportunity to demonstrate his professionalism and strength of character. Our second story is about a couple, Sarah and Ben. They have been planning a weekend trip, and Sarah has been doing most of the research and booking. On Friday afternoon, Ben calls her and says, "Hey, my friend Mark just invited a few of us to go to a big football match this weekend. It's the finals. I completely forgot about it. Is there any way we can cancel our trip?" Sarah's immediate internal reaction is a volcanic eruption of fury and disappointment. Her mind-reading trap fires up instantly. He doesn't care about our trip. He'd rather be with his friends than with me. He's so selfish. He never thinks about my feelings. The personalization trap joins in. He is doing this to me, to ruin our special weekend. She feels a powerful urge to scream into the phone, to list all the hours she spent planning, to accuse him of being a terrible partner, and to hang up. But Sarah, like Liam, catches herself. She feels the hot tears welling up in her eyes and the tightness in her throat. This is a familiar pattern for them. A small issue that quickly explodes into a massive fight. But this time, she wants it to be different. She uses the tool of creating space, even on the phone. She says, her voice a little shaky, "Wow, Ben, I need a minute to process that. Can I please call you back in 10 minutes? Ben, surprised by her calm tone, agrees. During those 10 minutes, Sarah doesn't just stew in her anger. She actively uses her toolkit. She walks around her office. She does her breathing exercises. She names her feelings out loud to herself. I feel so hurt. I feel unimportant. I feel angry that he didn't remember. She lets herself feel those things without immediately acting on them. Then, she challenges her story. Is it true that he wants to hurt me? Or is it more likely that he is just forgetful and got swept up in the excitement with his friend? He's usually a thoughtful partner. This is out of character. By questioning her initial interpretation, she opens up a space for a little more generosity. She thinks about her goal. Is my goal to punish him and win this fight? Or is my goal to find a solution that works for both of us and to feel connected to my partner? When she calls him back, her energy is completely different. She has moved from reaction to response. She starts by validating his perspective. Okay, I can hear how excited you are about this football match. Then she calmly and honestly states her own feelings, using I statements instead of you accusations. When you told me you wanted to cancel, I felt really hurt and disappointed because I've been looking forward to our trip all month, and I put a lot of work into planning it. Then, she moves towards a collaborative solution. I don't want you to miss out on something important to you, and I don't want to cancel our weekend together. Is there any way we can compromise? Could we go on our trip and you could watch the match at a pub there? Or could we reschedule our trip for next weekend? Ben, who was expecting a fight, is disarmed by her response. He is able to truly hear her feelings because he doesn't feel attacked. He apologizes for being thoughtless, and they begin to work on a solution together. What was a guaranteed recipe for a weekend-ruining argument was transformed into a moment of respectful negotiation and connection. Sarah's choice to pause didn't just change the outcome of that one conversation. It strengthened the foundation of trust and respect in their entire relationship. Our third scenario brings us into the digital world, with a university student named Chloe. Chloe posts a picture on social media of a project she's proud of. Most of the comments are positive, but then she sees one from a stranger that says, "This looks like something a high school student would make." So amateur. The sting is immediate and sharp. It feels like a punch to the gut. The personalization trap is sprung instantly. This person is attacking me. They think I'm stupid and untalented. The all-or-nothing thinking kicks in. My project is a failure. Everyone probably secretly agrees with this comment. Her fingers hover over the keyboard, ready to type a furious, defensive reply. She wants to insult the commenter back, to defend her work, to prove them wrong. This is the reactive urge, the digital fight or flight. But Chloe stops. She closes the app. She puts her phone down on the other side of the room, creating crucial physical and digital space. She feels the adrenaline coursing through her. She stands up and does a few quick stretches, focusing on the feeling in her muscles instead of the toxic words in her head. She names the feeling. I feel humiliated. I feel defensive. My confidence is shaken. Then, she begins to shift her perspective. She asks herself, who is this person? I don't know them. They are just an anonymous account online. Why am I giving their opinion so much power over my feelings? She reminds herself of the 99 positive comments she received versus this one negative one. She recognizes that she has fallen into the mental trap of focusing only on the negative. She asks the time frame question, in a week, will I even remember this person's username or their silly comment? The answer is no. By pausing, Chloe takes the power back. She realizes that reacting with anger would only give the commenter what they wanted: a reaction, attention, drama. It would drain her energy and ruin her day over something ultimately meaningless. She has several response options. She could delete the comment and block the user, simply removing the negativity from her space. She could ignore it completely, giving it zero energy. Or, if she felt particularly strong, she could respond with detached kindness. Something like, "Thank you for your feedback." Any of these choices is a response, not a reaction. They are choices made from a place of control and self-respect. Chloe chooses to delete the comment and block the user. She then takes a moment to reread the positive comments, letting them sink in. She chooses to focus on the positive reinforcement from people who matter. In all three stories, Liam, Sarah, and Chloe faced a moment that could have easily spiraled into negativity, conflict, and regret. But by using the simple tools of the pause, they transformed the outcome. They didn't suppress their emotions. They managed them. They didn't show weakness. They demonstrated incredible strength. This is the power of not reacting in action. It's a skill that can be learned, a muscle that can be built, and a choice that is available to all of us in every moment of our lives. As we begin to weave these practices into our lives, it's natural to focus on the immediate benefits, avoiding arguments, reducing stress in tense moments, and feeling more in control of ourselves. These are, without a doubt, wonderful and life-changing results. However, the true power of learning not to react extends far beyond simply managing conflict. When you consistently practice the pause and choose a thoughtful response, you begin to fundamentally change your relationship with yourself and the world around you. You start to experience a series of profound, long-term benefits that create a deep and lasting sense of well-being. One of the most significant long-term benefits is a dramatic improvement in the quality of your relationships. Think about the people you admire most, the ones you feel safest and most respected around. Chances are, they are not highly reactive people. They are likely calm, steady presences in your life. They listen more than they shout. They seek to understand rather than to win. When you cultivate the habit of not reacting, you become that person for others. Your friends, your family, your partner, and your colleagues learn that they can come to you with difficult topics without fearing an emotional explosion. You create an environment of psychological safety around you. Trust deepens. Communication becomes more open and honest. The constant cycle of petty arguments and misunderstandings begins to fade away, replaced by a foundation of mutual respect and genuine connection. You stop being a source of drama and start becoming a source of stability. This transformation in your relationships is one of the greatest gifts this practice can offer. Another profound benefit is a remarkable enhancement in your decision-making abilities. When you react impulsively, you are making choices from the most primitive, emotional part of your brain. These are rarely your best decisions. A reactive decision might lead you to quit a job in a fit of anger, end a relationship over a misunderstanding, or make a foolish financial choice based on fear or excitement. But when you operate from a place of response, you are engaging your prefrontal cortex, the center of logic, reason, and foresight. You have the clarity to weigh pros and cons, to consider long-term consequences, and to align your choices with your most important goals and values. Over time, this leads to a life that feels less chaotic and more intentional. You build a life based on a series of wise, considered choices, rather than a messy collection of emotional reactions. This leads to better outcomes in your career, your finances, your health, and every other area of your life. Perhaps the most personal and powerful benefit is the cultivation of deep self-respect and inner peace. Every time you successfully manage an impulsive urge, every time you choose a calm response over a heated reaction, you are sending a powerful message to yourself. The message is, I am in control. I am not a slave to my emotions. I have the strength to choose my own behavior. This act of self-discipline builds an unshakable form of self-trust and self-respect. You begin to see yourself as a strong, capable person who can handle life's challenges with grace. This leads to a quietening of your inner world. Much of our internal anxiety and stress comes from replaying past events where we reacted poorly, or worrying about future events where we might lose control. We cringe at the memory of something harsh we said. We feel anxious about an upcoming difficult conversation. When you develop the skill of non-reactivity, much of this mental noise begins to dissolve. You have fewer regrets to look back on, and you have more confidence in your ability to handle whatever the future brings. The result is a state of mind that is calmer, clearer, and more present. It's a sense of inner peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances being perfect. It's a stable, internal anchor in the often stormy seas of life. Finally, learning not to react grants you a subtle but immense form of personal influence and authority. In any group or situation, the person who remains calm under pressure is the one who naturally commands the most respect. They become the unofficial leader, the steady center that others look to when things get chaotic. Think about it. When everyone else is panicking, the person who can pause, think clearly, and respond thoughtfully is the one with the real power. This isn't a loud, aggressive power. It's a quiet, confident authority that comes from deep self-possession. People are naturally drawn to this energy. It makes you a more effective leader, a more persuasive communicator, and a more trusted advisor. These benefits, deeper relationships, better decisions, self-respect, inner peace, and quiet authority, don't happen overnight. They are the cumulative result of thousands of small choices, of choosing the pause again and again and again. Each individual choice may seem small, but together, they build the architecture of a more peaceful, powerful, and fulfilling life. It is a journey, not a destination, but it is one of the most worthwhile journeys you can ever choose to embark upon. As we bring this episode of English in Fluency to a close, let's take one final moment to gather the threads of our conversation. We have traveled through the inner workings of our brain, understanding the ancient biological wiring that pulls us toward immediate, impulsive reactions. We've seen how this system, designed to protect us from physical threats, can be easily hijacked by the social and emotional challenges of our modern world. We drew a clear, bright line between reacting and responding. A reaction is automatic, emotional, and often leads to regret. A response is intentional, thoughtful, and rooted in personal power. The space between these two worlds, that tiny, precious moment of pause, is where our freedom and our growth truly live. We uncovered the mental traps, the unhelpful stories of mind reading, personalization, and catastrophizing that we tell ourselves, stories that act as the fuel for our emotional fires. And most importantly, we began to fill our emotional toolkit with practical, powerful strategies like conscious breathing, naming our emotions, creating space, and shifting our perspective. The central message, the one idea I hope you carry with you long after this episode ends, is this: you are not your emotions. You are the sky, and your emotions are the weather. The weather is constantly changing. Sometimes it's stormy and dark. Sometimes it's bright and clear. But the sky, your core awareness, remains vast, open, and untouched. By learning not to react, you are learning to stop identifying with the storm and to remember that you are the calm, steady sky that holds it all. You have the power to observe the lightning flash of anger and hear the thunder of frustration without becoming the storm itself. I also want to leave you with a profound sense of your own capacity for change. No matter how reactive you feel you are today, no matter how many times you have lost your temper or said things you regret, please know that this is not a fixed part of your personality. It is a habit. And like any habit, it can be changed with conscious, consistent effort. It rarely happens overnight, but it absolutely happens through the cumulative power of small, intentional actions over time. Think one last time about your English studies. No one becomes fluent in a day. It's the daily practice, each new word learned, each conversation attempted, each mistake made and learned from, that ultimately leads to fluency. The very same principle applies to your emotional health. Every time you choose to pause and take a breath instead of lashing out, every time you notice a negative thought and choose not to believe it, every time you walk away from a heated moment to cool down, you are laying another brick in the foundation of your own resilience, your own inner peace, and your own self-respect. These small steps are not small at all. They are everything. So, here is my final, gentle call to action for you. Don't try to change everything at once. That's overwhelming. Just choose one thing. For the next week, I invite you to become a curious observer of your own reactions. Pick one recurring situation that typically triggers you. Maybe it's the way your children argue in the car. Maybe it's a particular colleague at work. Maybe it's the evening news. Just one thing, and your only goal is to notice. Notice when you feel the trigger. Notice the feeling in your body. And then, just try to create a 1-second pause before you act. That's it. Just 1 second. In that 1 second, take one deep breath. That is your practice. That is your first step. If this episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it with a friend or a family member who might also find value in this conversation. Opening up dialogues about emotional well-being helps to break down stigma and reminds us all that we are not alone in our struggles. And of course, I warmly invite you to subscribe and come back for our next episode of English in Fluency, where we will continue to explore meaningful topics together, growing our language skills and our life skills side by side. Remember, every small pause you choose truly counts. You have within you the power to take control, to make positive changes, and to cultivate a healthier, more compassionate relationship with your own emotions. Be patient with yourself, stay consistent in your efforts, and believe in your incredible capacity to grow. Life will always bring its storms, but with awareness, action, and self-care, you can learn to navigate them with ever-increasing strength, confidence, and peace. Until next time, take wonderful care of your mind, your heart, and your words. Thank you for sharing this time with me here on English in Fluency, a place where language meets life, where reflection meets action, and where your journey is always honored. Take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you soon.